wherever you are joining us. It is another episode of Unfiltered, live on a Sunday, as I know a couple of games still going on, but we cap an opening day weekend, which gave us plenty, some of it good, some of us bad, some of it very, very ugly, certainly in the case of the New York Mets, among others. Get into all that, all the storylines. We'll talk about why the Yankees are the first star of the weekend, even though there have been some who have been dominant. They or get top billing from me. We'll discuss why. On the other side, tale of one city and two different teams in New York. The Mets dropped to 0-3, their worst start in many years, staying in the East. The Phillies get an overturn and then turn it into a win to salvage a game against the Braves. Justin Turner in a big spot for the Jays here, certainly in his first weekend with the team, a home run, 4 RBIs. Chris Sale's debut, we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about Jack Flaherty. We'll get into the Rangers, who get their first loss in a long time. I want to talk about the NL West a little bit, and how about what the Reds did, back-to-back home runs with 2 outs with their backs against the wall. The Central could be topsy-turvy this year all year long. And just when you think the Brewers won't be involved, Stearns in New York, Burns with the Orioles, team not the same. Here they are again, ho-hum, they're 3-0 to start the year. It doesn't seem to matter. This does matter. We, as always, presented by our good friends at BetOnline. They're your number one source for all your sports betting needs. They've got the latest lines, odds, and matchup reports for baseball, basketball, boxing, golf, and more. They continue to be the fastest and easiest way to get your wagers, live betting, favorite casino, and card games. They're all available right now, right from your phone. So do it, people. Get to the website, use your mobile device, and do it today. To get in on the action, remember to use the promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. You'll get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. It is BetOnline where the game starts, and I got to start with the Yankees. It is not the fact. Look, let's backtrack. You can't overreact. Well, you can. It's certainly on Twitter or X if you're on that side. And yeah, welcome Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcast. If you're belated, I should have said this. Facebook, YouTube. You can get the YouTube channel information. Please like and subscribe. Join for all of our exclusive content. You can get that at Casey Stern on Twitter. But if you are sitting there on Twitter and you're overreacting, you do that at the beginning of every season, whether it's really, really good or really, really bad. But it's not the fact that the Yankees are 4-0. It's how they got to 4-0, and it's who they did it against. The Astros have been a detriment to everything the Yankees have tried to do. You can go back to the fact when they were a game away from a World Series, what was it, 2017? Talk about the playoff appearances since, and it has never seemed like when it has mattered most that the Yankees could beat the Astros. Now, I'm not here to tell you that it necessarily matters most at the beginning of the season. You're not going to lose or win in October in what you do in the first 3-4 games here in the season, yet calendar's not even in April yet. However, to go beat that team, to be trailing in the first 3 games of this series, and to do it in the way they did and how they did the last couple of days, it's big time. Juan Soto is a guy who we've talked about a lot coming in through spring training and into this season about what is at stake for him this year. Here's a guy who can make a lot of money, oodles and oodles of cash, whether it be from the Yankees or somewhere else. But as I've said, the Yankees look at this 3 ways. They're here to woo Soto, they're here to win with Soto, and they are here to keep Juan Soto. And I would say Soto far, Soto good. 9 for 17, 3 walks, 4 ribbies, and not once but twice breaking ties to get go-ahead runs in. Did it in the 7th inning, I think it was, in the 3rd game of this series. Correct me if I'm wrong. That was yesterday on Saturday. Then today against Josh Hader in the 9th, opposite field base hit, one of his 3 hits on the day. And you look at the length and lineup with the Yankees, and you look at the difference that Soto makes, and you imagine, hopefully, knock on wood, if you're a Yankee fan, the foot issue gets cleared up. You put LeMahieu back at the top of that batting order. And the Yankees have had a lot. Look, they always had great lineups, but the last few years, they've had big-time problems scoring in big-time spots and getting big-time hits, and it's always seemed to be, when is Aaron Judge due up, and why are other teams going to pitch to him? Well, now Juan Soto is a guy who, in my opinion, no offense to Aaron Judge, we know how great he is, $360 million. But this is the best player on the team. This is one of the best handful of players in this sport. And now to add him to that ball club, clearly a premier MVP candidate this year, and to have him come through and to start this season the way they did, look, they could have been sitting there licking their wounds. They're not stupid. They know from Booney to Brian Cashman, everybody down the line on that team, the importance of Garrett Cole on this roster. They understand that even all of this within, all this 4-0, all this great beginning of the year, right, which could turn around the other way quickly, I understand. Even with all of that, they understand that without Garrett Cole, this is going to be extremely difficult to pull off. It is one thing to put pressure in the first couple of months of the season on the Nestor Cortezes and on the Marcus Stromans and on the Clark Schmidts and all the guys that they will run out there. It's another thing to imagine this team beating out the Baltimore club, who to me is as stacked as any, and Jackson Holiday should already be there, let's be fair, and going to be there soon. They're going to get better. High Burns with 11 Ks in the debut. We've talked about that. It is hard to believe that the Yankees are going to beat that team out in this division without Garrett Cole. I still stay that way, regardless of this. So their first star top billing for me here in Unfiltered for the weekend, but it does not mean that they're out of the woods. But rather than licking their wounds and going into the season and sitting there worrying about Garrett Cole, here's a team who certainly had plenty to worry about in general with all the pass they've had against the Astros. They come back in the first 3 games. They win all 4. And how about the Houston side? Not a great way for the new manager to start, clearly, post-Dusty life. But this Astros team is used to one thing only. They're used to winning, and winning at the highest level, and being in the ALCS every year, and being in so many World Series. It's only a week. They're not going to panic, not with the guys they have in that room. But 0-4, and against the Yankees, it's a message that was sent from the Yankees to the rest of this league and this sport that this is going to be a different year. And they got a lot of crap during the course of the offseason for not making managerial changes some people wanted, not making GM changes some people wanted. Even after they got Soto, people wanted Dylan Cease, people wanted Blake Snell, people wanted Montgomery back. People wanted to go ahead and do more, especially even with Garrett Cole when he was healthy, right? Well, all of that, put it aside. You're a Yankee fan. How do you feel right now? Let me know. Twitter, X, if you're there, at Casey Stern. You can jump on the YouTube channel, comments there as well. And if you're listening, Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcast, you can comment along the way after you get to listen to the pod. And of course, we are, I should mention earlier, dope that I am, we are now live on Instagram as well, at Unfiltered with Casey Stern. Give me a follow. As I said yesterday, we're new to this on Instagram, so I'm basically like on MySpace with Tom as my only friend. So please jump in, give us a follow, exclusive content along the way, at Unfiltered with Casey Stern on Instagram. But if you're the Yankees, got to be excited. On the other side of New York, the Mets. Suspensions, Ramirez, he'll appeal 3 games. Carlos Mendoza gets the first game. My guy Gibby, who I love, it was great to see him. You thought maybe he was going to manage the Mets to their first win in the Mendoza era. Doesn't end up, turning out that way. Not only did Tyler McGill not have his best stuff, but now sent, we found out after the game, for an MRI. And this is the problem with the Mets that we knew would be a problem going into the year. There was going to be a lot of pressure on this offense this season to somehow be good enough, and it'll certainly be way better when JD Martinez is in there, because even with the strikeouts and even with the age and whatever you want to say, the presence, even if he's a B or B plus version of what he was last year with the Dodgers, the presence of a JD Martinez is going to be a big-time factor. It's going to be a big-time factor in this lineup every time he's on deck, with Pete Alonso sitting there at the plate. But there's a lot of pressure on this offense because this starting rotation at times is not going to give you a lot of innings. And they need Senga back desperately, clearly. But when you're sitting there and looking at the names that are in it, you could have a lot of 5 and dive and maybe even be happy with that, which is going to tax the bullpen and certainly put pressure on the offense to score runs. It's one thing, look, the Chris Sale debut was 2 runs, 7 strikeouts, 5 1/3 innings. We're going to get to that. You do that every time that you're sitting there and you're pitching with the Braves. You give up 3 runs over 5 or 6 every time you're pitching with Atlanta with that lineup. I know wins are wins. I get it. I know what they don't mean, but wins for the team do, whether they're attributed to the pitcher or not. And you're looking at plenty of wins you're racking up if your starters with an Atlanta Braves roster in that lineup can do that. That may not even be good enough for the Mets, and I don't know how many starters can do that with the Mets every time that they come in, series out, week in, week out, and roll over in this calendar month to month. And that's a big problem. So does 0-3 mean they're going to be 0-162? No. But I'll say this, and I've said this, and this is not, I'm not a hater. I'm a Met guy, 86 plaque right over my shoulder. I'm not trying to sit there and, get, people, mad at me. But I'm trying to be honest with you and let you know, this team's going to win games. Don't worry. They will win a game this season. They will win games. They're not going to win many. And the more it looks like this, heading as the season goes along into the deadline, the more they're going to be a seller. The more they're going to be going the other direction. The more they're going to be looking at this and saying, hey, look, I hope Manaea is good, but I can move him. Hope Severino is better than he looked his first time out. Certainly. $13 million for 1 year, prorated. Maybe I can get something for it at the deadline. I hope that JD Martinez is good. Only spending $4.5 million this year. The rest is in the 2030s that they're paying it. So maybe I can go ahead and move him. That would be great. And that'll be mindset. David Stearns didn't come in here to try and win now. They tried and acted that way with one free agent who was a game changer, not just for this year, but for years to come. And did we ever see that yesterday with his stuff? And that's the $320 million that Steve Cohen, tried to give Yamamoto. And I get that. But outside of that, they handled this kind of the way you probably should with this roster. And to be fair, they weren't going to get JD Martinez if it wasn't at $4.5 million, basically what it's costing them this year, which is practically nothing. 0-3 doesn't mean 0-162. You're a Met fan. Want to hear from you. I get you're hitting the panic button. My problem with you, if you are, is what in the world did you think this season was when you came in? The Met fans are hilarious. Like, oh, I know we're not that good. I know we're not that good. They had like 5 innings into game 1, and you're freaking out and losing your bleeping minds. At the end of the day, people, family show, let's stay PG. Get your you-know-what straight. Understand where the Atlanta Braves are in your division and the Phillies, who they just beat 2 out of 3, and look where you are. Speaking of Philadelphia. 3-run, 7th inning, overturned because of a replay. Trey Turner, a big knock. Phillies get a big win. They do it without Bryce Harper, who gets the day off, with Sale on the hill, and after banging into the wall yesterday, good win for the Philadelphia Phillies. Go to the Central. I want to go to the AL side first, because Jack Flaherty, last year, I thought the Orioles should have probably aimed higher in the move that they made, picking him up at the deadline. But I like the idea of Flaherty with the Tigers, with A.J. Hinch and this staff, and getting kind of a new lease on life, a guy who's still got the type of stuff and psyche to be at the front end of a rotation, but doesn't have to be, because Tariq Skubal, I said this again, and this, you could talk about this way before the dominant start we just saw. Go back to the way Skubal pitched last year. At the end of the season, one of the best pitchers in the American League. And he's a guy who's going to be a candidate to be one of the top pitchers in the AL again this year. And their staff is now deeper. I know how bad the White Sox are. We all understand, sorry, how bad the White Sox are. My son plays for the White Sox in the local league, and he's trying to ask me what the White Sox team is like. It's like, are they bad? We were playing MLB The Show, and he was the White Sox, and I told him, if you actually want to win, which you can't beat me anyway, at least yet, thankfully he's 9, that you probably don't want to be the White Sox. They're not that good. He asked, truthfully, are they ever good? Ever is a long time, but not normally. They're not very good. So I understand the 3 wins are against Chicago, but I think if you're a Tiger fan, you're feeling pretty good. Ranger fans have felt good for a long, long time, clearly, obviously, with the World Series run, but also got out of the gates well, got a couple of wins. Nice job by the Cubs today. Bounce back and salvage one in the finale. Ian Happ gets 4 hits, including a bases-loaded walk and a 4-run 9th. Leclerc the other way gets the loss. And the Cubs come back late and get a big win, able to salvage some feeling of goodness before they get on the plane after the end of their first weekend. On the other side, in this Central Division, which is kind of weird because you talk about the NL, again, it's always been, for years it was the Cardinals are going to be at the top of the division, and then we saw what happened to them. The Cardinals went from the Cardinal way to the way off, right? And they seem to be, if they can get Sonny Gray as a healthy version of himself, the way we know he could pitch during the course of this season, not tax the bullpen as much as they did a year ago, get more innings, which is what they went for with the additions of the Gibsons, Lins, and others, then that lineup's probably going to play enough. And in this division, not need that much to be kind of, tightening contention with the Cubs there. But now the Brewers 3-0. And how about the Reds, who, what a way to end the game for them. I mean, had some trouble and hiccup in the middle of the series with the Nationals, but come back. They take 2 out of 3. Back-to-back home runs. Christian Encarnacion Strand, who was 0 for 12 to open the season, hits a homer. Will Benson goes with him back-to-back. The Reds end up getting a victory. That's Central, going to be interesting to watch. Game's still going on as I do this live. Padres beating up on the Giants. I wanted to say this about the Giants. We look at teams and we say, okay, the NL West is difficult, right? You got the Dodgers at the top end of that. I understand. We all do. Diamondbacks and these poor Rockies, beating up on them, being a Rocky fan, not going to be easy this year. Diamondbacks bringing in a franchise record payroll, coming off of what they did last year. So many young players, like, of course, at the forefront of that, Corbin Carroll, one of the premier MVP candidates in the National League, getting better and better. You add Jordan Montgomery to the staff with the Gallons and the Kellys, and when you get Erod back, and you love what you see there. We know about the Padres, who, in the addition of Cease, coming up last year, where with that roster, you figure things can't go as bad, or Mike Schilt as they went for Bob Melvin. They're going to be in the thick of things. And the Giants kind of got forgotten, but they shouldn't be. And Bob Melvin's got you right where he wants you. Back to a team where he doesn't, more like what he's used to. He doesn't have the pressure of what he was expected to do when he was with the Padres. Now more back when he was with the A's, and everybody kind of like hanging back, not thinking much of the Giants. But they bring in Blake Snell, coming off the Chapman signing. Obviously, Soler before that. You look at this rotation now with Snell and with Webb. I love what Jordan Hicks looked like in spring training. Maybe get Robbie Ray back in the fold. Maybe Conforto, who's looked good this weekend, can help kind of boost that offense even more. Had a big grand slam. He's got a couple of homers here in the first 4 games of the season. And you start to look at the Giants, and I think that National League West is going to be kind of, in some ways, be honest, what the AL East used to be, where you're looking at these dandies of these races, the 3-4 teams, when it was the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Rays and whatnot, and you're thinking they all got potential. I think the Giants are going to be better than people are giving them credit for. We know what the Diamondbacks are. Clearly, we know what the Dodgers are. And the Padres, to me, probably get the best chance to sing a redemption song of the Mets and the Cardinals and some of those others that had some funky issues, if you will, with what we thought they might be going back a year ago. So the West will be one to watch. Speaking of which, want to close on this. Dodgers will play tonight. Mookie Betts, we are not worthy. The guy is a freak show. We could talk about, and I love Shohei Ohtani, and it's hard not to say he's the best player in the game because nobody could do what he does. And he's, look, arguably, you could talk about the best talent that the game of baseball has ever seen. And I understand what that means to say that, but look at what this man can do when he's pitching and hitting at the same time, which the Dodgers hope to see coming up 2025. But Mookie Betts, who Jerry Hairston said, who does their analyst work on TV, longtime friend, said in a recent pod, which you can get, Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcasts. He said he's the best athlete right now in sports. I'd have to think about that more. I don't know if I go that far, but he's certainly in that category. This is a guy who has, for such a long time, seemingly succeeded at anything. And we're talking about bowling 300, in addition to the fact that, how many guys move from, we always see it, right? The Biggios and several others move from and Biggio was behind the plate, but then to the infield, then to the outfield. Rarely do you see guys from the outfield to the infield. 6 Gold Gloves in the outfield, go to second base, no problem. Now go to shortstop, even though you don't want to have that problem with Gavin Lux in the throwing. No issue, goes over to shortstop. The guy has barely made an out through the first week of the season. His OPS is like, it's like when they went to the Millennium, he's going to break all the computers. You try, no TI-82 calculator, going to even find it. We are not worthy of Mookie Betts. Looking forward to seeing Betts and the Dodgers close out the series with the Cardinals as they do this live here on a Sunday night. You can always catch us during the week and every week. A lot of baseball coverage here, but we also do all the other sports on Unfiltered, basketball, some football. And I do a lot of combat sports. I've loved the UFC since day one. Very, very happy to say that on Tuesday on this show, longtime friend, and in my opinion, the top journalist that MMA has literally ever had, Ariel Helwani, will be my guest on Unfiltered. We got a lot coming up here. We'll catch you again, newly on Instagram, at Unfiltered with Casey Stern. Get you on Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcast, YouTube channel. You can get up in the Twitter bio, and we'll get you on X as we always do. It is Unfiltered, wherever you see us or hear us, presented by our good friends